All right, like I said, everybody, it does take a minute for everyone to come back in. We had about 250 breakout. We've got about 180 back in so far. Our host being one of those people that are not back in yet.
Hey, welcome back.
There it is.
Hello.
There we go. Okay, do I have the green light, Dave?
Hang on. Nope, we're still coming back.
No problem. I'll enjoy my green tea.
I will let you
David,
know
it was
when we are all
interesting.
back.
There were 6 people in my group, but only 2 of them showed pictures and talked.
Oh, that is interesting. So listen, I encourage everyone to participate. You're going to get a lot more on today's program. And there will be a number of different topics to talk about as we move forward. Our goal, again, is to move you into action today. So I encourage you, if you're a little bit nervous about sharing your name, confidentiality, whatever it might be, as Dave said earlier, upper right-hand corner of your picture, you can click a button, the 3 dots, and you can rename yourself anything you want to be. You can pick a celebrity name if you want to. You can pick a sports name, whatever you want. But I encourage you to make sure you participate. If you don't want to let people see you, then make sure you at least turn your microphone on so you can hear. Dave, do I have a green light yet?
You do, and I thank you for bringing that up, Chris, because we still got a lot of Stephen Dangerfields out there. So again, it would be great if you could change your name to, again, a celebrity, or even your real name would be fantastic. But Chris, we are ready to go, buddy.
Okay, let's get rolling. Yeah, you're also welcome in the upper right-hand corner of your main screen. You'll see where it says speaker view. You can get a bigger picture of the person who is speaking if you want to, or you can use the gallery view, but it might make it more enjoyable as we move through the program. So listen, let's get on with today's topic. Welcome to the fundamentals of real estate investment. That is our topic today. Now listen, real estate investment is a massive, massive topic with a lot of nuances, and there is no one size fits all. It takes literally hours of time to fully understand and to really be able to deploy a solid real estate investment strategy. Today's session is designed for people, I think just like us, right? People who are just thinking about the possibility of investing in real estate, either first timers or maybe even people who are restarting their real estate investment business. Our session today is focused on developing a path to start your real estate investment business. By the way, I just suggest that that you focus on the overall content of today's concept. Go ahead, write down notes if you want to, if you'd like, but know that you're going to have full access to the complete deck that I'm using, as well as all of my notes. It'll all be available at wealthbuilderexpo.com. You'll also have access to a complete recording of today's program. And yes, there'll be a number of opportunities for Q&A in addition to the breakout session. So I recommend ask the questions. If you're thinking about it, someone else is too. This is your chance. This is your opportunity. So you might ask, like, why am I doing this? Like, what is my why? And I'll tell you, it's actually really simple. My goal, my why, is to help people in their 20s and 30s take action in real estate investment. You know, starting early makes a huge impact in this business. Now, don't be dissuaded. If you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, or even 70s, like me, don't worry. All that we're going to talk about works for us too. So my story is pretty simple. Back in my early 20s, I bought 8 or 9 condos. They were condos, townhouses, all multifamily. And yes, I broke all the rules. I paid too much money for them. I obtained bad financing. I attracted bad tenants. It was horrible. And then the 1990 market meltdown happened. And so I got out of those properties by the skin of my teeth. Well, listen, I did everything wrong. And recently, last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I dipped my toes back in. So currently I own a number of condos and I'm developing a 9-unit townhouse project. But listen, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I made a few good decisions. And I've learned from a number of incredibly smart people. And that's what I'd like to share with you today, those great ideas of people and ideas and concepts and strategies that really work in this business. Now for a disclaimer, I am not an attorney and I'm not an accountant. I'm not even a therapist. I'm a real estate broker. And residential real estate investment is an important part of my wealth building journey and my retirement strategy. There may be times when it seems like I'm giving you tax or legal advice, but just be aware I am not. So what are we going to go over today? We've got a couple of things I want to make sure that we cover, and I wanted to double check. Dave, our screen is working. You guys can all see the screen?
Looks good. You are set.
Unanimous? All right.
Wait, no. I take it back. I'm just still looking at you.
And that's a lot to look at. So you know what? I don't think I've been sharing my screen all this time.
You
Not
have
that
not.
it's the end of the world, but let's see if we can't get you a little more information that might be helpful. Okay, how does that look?
There, it's coming. There we go. Perfect.
Beautiful. Okay,
There
so
you
here's what
go.
we're going to do. We're going to go through step one, which is really the very beginning. It's how to identify your current wealth stage. It'll give you the resources you need to have to be able to determine where you should enter into the investment process. Step number two, how to choose your specific real estate strategy. Step number three, we're going to walk through how to pick the right market to begin your real estate investment business. Step number four, we're going to talk about learning how to decide your personal investment property criteria. And then the importance of forming your team. I'm not talking about like a real estate team. I'm talking about your team to support you in your real estate investment business. Then we'll go on and talk a bit about property financing and down payment options. We're going to go through how to find the really good real estate deals, which is interesting because we're in the business. And then step 8, the last thing we're going to do, we're going to focus on your personal action plan and your personal next steps. Now listen, today's event, this session, it is not a sprint. This is a marathon. If you're a runner, this is the Leadville 100. I mean, like this is it's a ton of content, a lot of information. And that's why I said we're recording this. So you can go back and watch it 2 or 3 times. My guess is you're probably going to need that because it's just a lot to process through. And there are a lot of next step action items. And I would rather have you be in dialogue, if you will, be in conversation, than be scurrying, writing down all kinds of notes and not being able to actually get the grasp of what we're talking. Here's what I do know. Let's be crystal clear. Today's program is not a get-rich-quick strategy. It's not a zero-down scheme. Here's what I do know. Real estate investment is the very best get-rich-slow scheme of the modern world. And that's what we're going to be talking about in detail today. There are very few original ideas in real estate investment. That said, much of what we discussed today and the format that I follow is based on the work of a guy named Chad Carson. And I always believe in giving credit where credit is due. Chad is a humble, thoughtful, successful real estate investor from the great state of South Carolina. Now you can get more information on what Chad does and how he does it at coachcarson.com. I'll get you that more information down the road. But first, I want to overcome a quick myth. And that myth is that every first-time real estate investor makes millions of dollars in their spare time. They're out to lunch, going on great vacations, driving fancy cars, living that dream. In fact, when you look under the hood, real estate investment is not always a pretty sight. You see, the fact is 95% of all first-time investors fail. Now I'm betting that you're here today so that you don't become one of those 95%. We want you to be in the 5% that succeed. Now, few people can afford to try real estate investment after a failure. And so I want to kind of go over a couple of things that I think I want to point out that people stumble with. First of all, they don't have the knowledge. They get discouraged quickly and they just stop. They've got unrealistic expectations about time, money, and of course, effort. Many are undercapitalized because they didn't really walk through what it really takes to begin that career. They fail to anticipate market fluctuations that always seem to happen. And they don't have the right business organization. So understanding that, realizing that the choices that you make today and into the future really matter for your overall success. My recommendation is when it comes to real estate investment, stay away from gimmicks. You know, those classes and people charging thousands of dollars, for weekend seminars, like, don't do that. More times than not, it's just crap. You don't need that to be successful. Be around like-minded people that understand what you want to accomplish and how you want to accomplish, and realize that, think about it, we have a head start, right? I mean, this is our wheelhouse. We have access to data like MLS, like tax records, quality lenders like Guaranteed Rate. We know neighborhoods and markets, and we know trends that are happening. Listen, use these advantages to build your wealth. And if you're joining us today and you're not an agent, we've got access to the best agents. So send me an email, I'll send you somebody good, but don't let that hold you up. So let's get started by understanding what it takes in this business and what makes real estate such a powerful investment tool, because there is really nothing else like it. You see, it begins with these two powerful levers, if you will. And the levers are cash flow and appreciation. And rarely can you get both in an investment. But both of those cash flow, that would be rent coming in, you're paying your expenses, you have extra cash coming in and that you can then utilize to either pay down debt, or you can use it to live on, or you can use it to buy other properties. And the second is appreciation. Appreciation is when the property that you own, maybe because of forced appreciation, which we'll talk about later, or just natural appreciation, the asset becomes worth more. Two ways to win when it comes to real estate investing. And then you add on top of that the ability to spread risk. When you look at most real estate investments, they're funded by three sources, right? The first source is you. That's the down payment you might make on the property that you're buying. The second is your bank or mortgage company. In many cases, 80% of the actual investment cost is brought to the table by somebody other than you. And then number three, and my favorite, the last, is your tenant. And they're the ones that are actually paying off that mortgage month after month, year after year. So again, three ways of being able to spread that risk. Something good to keep in mind. But I'm always asked, what's the secret sauce when it comes to real estate investment? And from my perspective, it's one word. And that one word is leverage. But let's explore really what leverage means and how it works. I want to offer you kind of a pretend, fictitious example. Assume for a minute that Bev and Ryan each buy a rental property for $200,000. Ryan decides to buy his property completely with cash, $200,000. Bev, on the other hand, decides to buy her property with a down payment of 20% or $40,000. Now, Bev and Ryan both bought houses in great areas where values increased 10%, let's just say $20,000 over the next 2 years. So now, moving fast forward, both Bev and Ryan's homes are worth $220,000. Now, because Ryan invested $200,000, Ryan earns a 10% return on his investment over that 2-year period. On the other hand, Bev only invested $40,000, right? She put 20% down. Yet she receives the same amount of appreciation. So her $40,000 investment, she's now receiving a 50% return on her investment in just 2 years. Bev invested less money and still received the same gain. So that is an example of leverage. But let me just show you where the rubber hits the road. And I apologize for all these numbers, and don't get lost in the numbers, but I just want you to get kind of the basic takeaway from this. So as we look at how the rubber hits the road, discover why, when surveyed, more than 50% of all American multimillionaires attribute their real estate investments as a significant source of their total wealth. Now let's start by going back 10 years, a case study, if you will. So if you had $100,000 to invest 10 years ago, now it's not important how much it is. I'm using that as an example. Don't say, oh my God, I don't have 100,000. Forget about that. It's just an example. Imagine that's 2010. And you have two choices. You can either invest your $100,000 in the stock market or in real estate. Now listen, the stock market investment would be so much easier. And the real estate investment, more work and more demanding. But you've got to take a moment and decide which one of these is worth it to you. Okay, so it's 2010, you put 100 grand in the stock market. After 10 years, let's just give it a 5% annual return. So your $100,000 will have earned you $64,000. bringing your total equity from 100,000 to 164,000. Now, how about you? That sounds pretty good to me, right? Like I'm in. That sounds like my money's making me money. Now, though, imagine that you invested the same $100,000 in real estate. You use that $100,000 as a down payment and as a reserve. Now, assuming the property appreciates at the same rate as the market, 5%. Now, by utilizing leverage, your $100,000 investment in 2010, when you look at the rental rates coming in, you look at the pay down of your loan, it turns into a $494,000 equity position. But it gets even better than that. You see, the residual income on your stock market investment, if it stays at about 5%, is about $700 per month. Whereas the residual income, meaning the monthly income on your real estate investment, would be just over $2,500 a month. So let me ask you, what would you rather retire on? That, my friends, is why we're spending time together today. Real estate is a tool. Wealth building is the project. So roll up your sleeves. Let's get started with step number one. Real estate investing is simply a tool to improve your personal finances. So before we get into the details of real estate and the other steps that I want to go through, I want to start with your overall financial picture because it's so important to determine where you are right now and what you have the ability to be able to do. The big picture of investing is really about building wealth and achieving financial independence. Like that's what we're shooting for. And you can look at wealth building kind of like climbing a mountain, if you will. Now, most of us begin at the bottom of the mountain with very little wealth, but as you climb higher and your wealth grows, you begin having money work for you instead of simply trading your time to earn money. Now, ultimately, you reach the peak of the mountain where your wealth produces enough income so you no longer need to actively work for money. Now, I call this your financial independence number. Listen, you can still work, of course, but now you work completely on your own terms. And you can afford to spend more time on personally rewarding activities like time with family, time with friends, travel, new hobbies, volunteering, whatever matters most to you in life. So as you can see here, I'm an artist. I shamelessly stole this beautiful artwork because you don't want to see me out there working on art. But this gives you kind of the idea of this proverbial mountain that I was referring to. FI, your financial independence, is on top, and the 5 stages of wealth. But let's walk through each one of these, right? Because you've got survival is that first step, stability, number 3 is the saver stage, and then growth, and then income. Let me walk you through. It's really important that you're super clear where you stand right now, or what we're going to talk about isn't going to make enough sense. So let's make sure we're clear. Stage 1, survival. This is the milestone when you're earning some money, you're getting your bills paid, and you might also be at a place where you're digging yourself back out of some financial holes that you inadvertently dug in the past. Stage 2 is what I call stability. Now, stability is like Dave Ramsey's first 3 baby steps. Remember, if you were with us with Chris Hogan, he walked us through kind of how that works. This is where you pay off your personal debts. You build up some cash reserves in the bank. And your job, you kind of build those job skills, if you will, so that you're more in demand in whatever marketplace you might be in. In our business, that means you become better at listing property, better at selling properties, better at doing more transactions. Stage 3. Saver is the stage where you realize the importance of your savings rate and put that actually into practice. Now, building wealth is actually simple, but it's not easy. You need to maximize your income while simultaneously decreasing your spending. Then that gives you the ability to set aside a bit of money. Now, below average wealth builders are saving anywhere from 0 to 10% of their income. Not enough. But above average wealth builders are saving between 25, 50, and even 70% of what they're bringing in. Now, the faster you want to reach financial independence, the more you need to save. All right, now stage 4. This is where, in my mind, it gets fun. Growth is the stage where most of us think of as kind of investing. It's taking your $50,000 nest egg and strategically, purposefully turning that into, say, $1 million. The key is to maximize compounding by reinvesting your earnings, buying good assets, and really just maintaining discipline. Not always easy, but very important. And stage 5 is the goal, right? Like the income is the stage that income stage, when you've already put together a large chunk of cash, of equity, and you're ready to enjoy the fruits of your wealth building labor. The objective here is to turn equity into a regular income stream that gives you three things. It gives you time, freedom, and flexibility. Okay, so those are the 5 stages, if you will, of wealth, of kind of where you stand wealth-wise. Now, understanding the concept of wealth, the stages themselves are particularly important for you as a real estate investor, right? Like your current wealth stage determines in large part which of the dozens of possible strategies are a good fit for you. I've seen so many new investors spin their wheels in frustration because they're trying strategies that aren't a good match for where they are right now today. A certain real estate strategy might sound good from like a real estate guru on late night TV, but unless it matches where you are at your wealth stage, it's just a waste of time, energy, and money, and creates this unbelievable frustration. But first things first, Dave's going to invite us all back to our breakout, into our accountability room. And when you see the invite on your screen, remember to hit the accept real quick, and then it'll push you over there. And then when it says come back, make sure you come back. If you want the results that you're here to get today, I really suggest leaning into the process. You won't regret it. So now here's a question. Which of the 5 wealth stages above best describe where you are today? Are you in that survival stage, that stability stage, that saving stage, growth, or income stage? Just share that with your group. And for now, don't try to overthink it or be perfect. Like, just choose the one that seems the best fit for where you are right now. By the way, you shouldn't beat yourself up if you're not at the stage you want to be. We've all been there. Everyone has to climb the same mountain. The fact that you're growing and building wealth right now is all that really matters. You're so far ahead of the people that never even think about this thing. So, Dave, take the screen.
All righty, we are ready to go. Remember to click that little pop-up when it asks you to join the room. And when you get in the room, you may be muted. So make sure you unmute yourself. And if you can, turn on your camera. It makes it a little bit more personable. So
Thank
here
you.
we go. You got it. Oh my goodness, we got a lot of people that joined afterwards, Chris. Sign. I'm assigning all you folks that came in a little bit late. You're all headed off to rooms, so just bear with me.
There's a lot of Stephen Dangerfields.
I think it's because Stephen registered so many people.
Dave, I'm unmuted now.
You are unmuted.
Yeah, so I sent Chris a text, maybe let him know. He doesn't, I'm gonna stop the call.
Oh, I'm gonna stop the call. Thank you,
Oh,
Craig.
fantastic.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah,
Listen,
what did you
Craig,
do?
you got great timing. I'm gonna go ahead and reshare my screen. I think it does fall off whenever, that's what happened last time.
Hey, Chris,
Yeah,
can you hear me?
I can.
So Craig just figured out his volume. You can stop the call because his volume is working now.
I'm back,
Oh, that's
Chris.
fantastic. So I'm not going to stop the call that we're all on together.
No, no,
but
no, of course.
I am going to stop the iPhone call that I had with Craig. So very good. You should all see a Q&A screen. I just want to very quickly open this up for Q&A. I've got Craig on the line as well. Any questions at all from anybody about these stages, the foundation? And I know for many of you, it may seem fundamental or rudimentary. It may seem like, why are you rubbing this in? Like, I'm not where I want to be. Listen, I'm not where I want to be. I'm in growth stage. I'm not in income. I want to get to income. And by the way, I spent a long time in survival stage. I don't recommend that. So we're just being open and honest today, right? That's the beginning of all of this. So are there any questions from anyone? You're welcome to use the chat up on your screen, and Dave will give us any of those. If not, we'll keep rolling.
We look good. So
Okay,
far,
let's
so
keep
good.
rolling. Fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to move into step number 2. Now, step 2, listen, if wealth stages are milestones during your climb, then the strategies are the routes that get you up the mountain, how you actually get there. So at this point, you might be compelled to create like this 30-page business plan of strategies that like even an MBA would be proud of. But remember, the goal is just to get started. So let's begin with something quicker. You can create a big detailed plan down the road, but for now, I want you to choose just one of the real estate strategies we're going to be talking about in a second. We're going to use that to help you move from your current wealth stage to the next wealth stage. So if you were at survival, how to move up to stability, going from, let's say, growth to income. That's the goal we're looking to do. Again, my artwork, I know you're very impressed with this, actually not my artwork, stolen artwork, but all the beautiful, all the more. But here are some strategies if you find yourself in that survival or stability stage, right? You're 1 or 2. And the goal is really simple. It's how do we help you today earn extra income, learn, and avoid losses? And I try to put some different examples in here that will apply to everyone, because not everyone on the call is selling real estate. Most of us are, but not everyone. First thing is keep your day job, right? Keep working and do the best you can to earn more money at the job you are in. If you're selling real estate, get better at listing. Look for new sources of prospecting, right? Drive your revenue. Second thing, instead of simply renting or stretching to buy a home, consider this thing called a master lease. You can master lease a house, or you can master lease a duplex, but it gives you the ability to rent out either bedrooms or units to help reduce your payment without having to put down a large down payment. We'll talk more about that later, but it's a really cool concept and it works in a lot of high-end markets. Second thing is a bird dog for other real estate investors. And this is something that Craig's going to talk about at the end of the program today, because he's a master at doing this. Second, the next piece is becoming a buyer's agent, meaning focus some of your business, your real estate business, if you're in the real estate business, in helping people find houses that they are buying for investment. Again, that's something that Craig's going to touch on in a few minutes. Same thing with becoming a leasing agent, meaning get engaged in the business of being around landlords and tenants. And the last thing in this category, again, if you're looking to earn extra income, learn, and avoid losses, is manage or supervise some remodeling projects for other investors. Jump on Craigslist, a lot of opportunities around that. You can make some extra money, but you learn the process of how it works as well. Highly recommended. Now, if you're in that stage 3, that saver stage, your goal is different. Your goal is to dramatically increase your savings rate by reducing expenses and or increasing income. So everything in stage 1 works, but there are a couple of cool different things. One of them is called hacking your housing. I didn't invent that. That's a phrase that's used. You can Google it. It's very cool. But the idea of hacking your housing is buying a property. Let's say you buy a duplex with the idea of renting out one of the units, right? It's how do you get someone else to pay for part of your expenses when it comes to being in a housing transaction. Also do a live and flip. These are very cool. So you buy a property, you live in it with the intention of flipping it. So you buy it, you fix it up, but there are incredibly powerful tax savings advantages. As an individual, every 2-3 years, you can do this. You can actually earn up to $250,000 tax-free by living in your primary residence for more than 2 of your past 5 years when you sell that property after fixing it up. Huge opportunity. It's a great way to start building some pretty serious cash. Also do a live-in, then rent. So in other words, you buy a property, and there's some real advantages to that, because when you buy a property to live in, that means you've got a better mortgage rate, you've got a better mortgage product to buy that property, and you have an ability to be able to live there, get it set up to be the perfect rental, and then convert it to a rental down the road. And in most cases, not all, you have the ability of keeping that existing mortgage in place moving forward. Start wholesaling real estate for quicker, smaller chunks of cash. We'll talk more about that towards the end, but it's a really worthwhile concept. And then also, listen, if you're looking to generate more cash, starting that non-real estate side hustle, whatever it might be that matches your skills and passions, where you can bring in more revenue. But ultimately, it's really simple. You got to spend less than you make. That sounds so simple. And for so many people, it's so hard. But the magic is being able to be disciplined and not spend the money on things that don't matter as much as growing your wealth. Now, if you find yourself in that growth stage, kind of where I'm at right now, there's some very specific strategies for people in that category. Remember, the strategy goal is different. This goal is, how do you grow your smaller net worth into a much larger net worth? Fix and flip is a great way to generate chunks of cash, but you got to know the business. We'll talk more about how you know the business down the road. I also would encourage you to join us on October the 15th, when we spend a little bit of time with Mark Ferguson on just exactly this topic. Then building and growing income property portfolio using one of these 3 plans. First of all, one of these plans. First of all, the all cash plan, right? Like that's the idea of buying properties with 0 debt, paying 100% cash, meaning buying a cheaper property than you otherwise might buy. You don't have leverage, but you have less risk. The debt snowball plan really stems from the Dave Ramsey organization, right? This idea, this concept of we've got 4 or 5 properties. You take the property with the lowest mortgage, not mortgage rate, the lowest principal balance, and you take the income, you're getting the surplus income from all of your properties, and you just laser focus on one property and you pay that mortgage off. Then you use all of the net cash flow on that one property. You identify the next lowest principal balance. You put all of your efforts on paying that off. And the idea is a snowball, accelerate, and being able to end up with free and clear real estate, which is, of course, the grail. Next idea, buy 3, keep 2, right? Sell 1. And this gives you an opportunity, or sell 2, keep 1. It's just a combination of what you think makes the most sense for your plan. But buying those 3 rentals, holding, then selling, and paying off that debt on the 3rd property. Again, it's a strategy on getting debts paid off. The trade-up plan, this is something that, quite frankly, I learned from Craig, and that is you may end up with a lot of smaller properties, residential properties, and over time, when they're all paid off, you may want to take those properties and go into one commercial property, a strip shopping center, a different kind of investment. And I'll tell you, you have the tailwinds of the US tax code on your back, which is fabulous, because what it does, it allows you to take all those properties that you've fully depreciated and move them right to another property and not have to pay any kind of capital gains tax as you do that. So again, proven strategy for those growth-oriented people. And the last one is this idea of a self-directed retirement account plan, where you can take that self-directed IRA or 401k, and in many cases, you can actually invest that money tax-free in private loans to other investors, in rentals, or in fix and flips. There's just a lot of possibilities there. Again, would require the help of your accountant, but just know that's a really powerful strategy to help you move from the growth stage to the income stage. Now, Stage number 5, the income stage. Goal here is very different. You want to turn your existing equity into investments that produce maximum monthly income, minimal hassle, minimum risk. So let's start with existing real estate portfolios. Obviously, pay off the debt to increase your overall levels. You want to be down to 0 to 33% loan to value on those properties. You want to sell low. So oftentimes you acquire properties that aren't very high quality when you're out there just trying to get your portfolio built. Now you end up with 3 or 4 of these properties that, quite frankly, they're not the highest caliber properties. Again, using the 1031 exchange, that ability to be able to take a property, sell it, buy another property to replace it, or sell 3 or 4, replace it with one bigger property. You don't pay any capital gains tax when you do that. Very powerful. And then refinancing any remaining debts that you have on properties that may not be optimal. These are properties with maybe high rates. They've got balloon payments coming up. Situations you just want to get out of. Market is so good right now for that. And then for folks that don't have existing portfolios or maybe an insufficient number of properties, this is a time, obviously, in that income stage to buy more passive assets like higher quality rentals, net lease commercial rentals, or even shares in limited partnerships. Keeping the overall debt levels low, low, low. You don't want more debt as you move into the income stage. You want to be the bank. You don't want to be going to the bank. Making loans to other investors with funds inside or outside of your self-directed retirement accounts. It's a beautiful example of how to put your money to work for you, secured by real estate, diversifying your other assets, which is always smart to do as well. So it gives you some ideas. But I will say, when you first start or restart your real estate investing business, overwhelm and paralysis are the enemies of your future success. When you're overwhelmed, you just don't take action. And if you don't take action, you'll never make progress or learn the most important lessons. These lessons can only be discovered when you're out in the field. Just like with your wealth stage, don't worry about being perfect. I had this mantra early in my real estate career, and that is perfection is the enemy of really good. And that still stands today. This means that trying to be perfect will prevent you from moving forward and being good enough for right now. Listen, there's always time to improve as you move down the road. So choosing a specific strategy right now is going to help you avoid overwhelm. It'll help you focus. And as a result, it'll help you gain clarity and confidence. So with your breakout group, this is a really quick one. We'll be only out for about a minute or so. I just want you to verbalize in your breakout group, what is your 1 or at most 2 strategies that you want to deploy from what we just went through right now, and what you're going to focus on. Dave, over to you, and boom, out to the groups.
All right, you guys know the drill, so let's just jump in. Now, again, if you did come in late, I have to actually assign you a breakout room, so if you don't go in, give yourself a second, but here we go. Oh my goodness. I came in late.
Hi, Dave.
Hello, how you doing?
I didn't go to my breakout room.
No, that's okay. There's lots of people that won't even go.
Yeah, maybe next time we do this, we should say if you want to be participating in a breakout room, you know what I mean? So we get, because I really did want to participate, but
Yeah, I mean,
No.
I have one room where literally all 6 people wouldn't even join.
Hmm.
So, and I guess, Stephen Dangerfield must have registered a whole bunch of people. That's why I think his name is showing up so much.
Who is he?
He's in New Jersey.
Oh,
He helps, he helps Wendy Crane out with the Education Expo and those types of things, all the events and things. He's kind of an event organizer, I guess, if you will.
oh.
Yeah. Okay.
Chris goes to a breakout room too?
He does. Yep. All right. Coming back.
All right, we're all coming back.
Give us a minute here. They're slowly coming back. And just as a caveat, Chris, is before you get started, there's a lot of people that simply do not want to join breakout rooms. So sometimes there's one person in one breakout room that's joined, but nobody else will join. So we apologize up front to those people that were in a room by themselves. You weren't actually in by yourself. It's just nobody else accepted. So just a heads up.
If that does happen, Dave, it's really not the end of the world. It's a great time to take a personal moment, get focused on what it is you want to do, document what you want to do. Listen, so much of real estate investing success is in clarity of focus, being able to really get clear on what it is you stand for, what you want to make sure that you're focusing on. So don't waste that time. This is that time to be able to spend. All right, let's jump back in. Any Q&A on this section, on these strategies? Okay, and if not, let's keep rolling.
Can you explain the buy 3 and sell 2 and keep 1 plan?
Yeah, let's go back to that. So the idea on that one, let me take you back to that slide. But the overall concept is when you're out looking at properties, and remember, you're at the phase now. This is all part of the growth phase. So you've got some money set aside. You're using that money to invest. Your goal is to take it from, let's say, 50 to $1 million. So you're buying 3 rental properties. You're holding, then maybe you're doing an improvement on 1 or 2 of them. Then you're selling 2 of them at a profit and using that profit to pay off the debt on the 3rd. Does that make sense? So let's say you buy 3 properties for $100,000. You do a little bit of fix up, you do a little bit of work, you hold them for a little bit of time. Let's say that each one of those is worth $150,000. You sell 2 of them for $300,000 and you retire the debt on that 3rd property. The goal behind the buy 3 or the buy 3, sell 2, keep 1 concept is it's a way to be able to end up with debt-free real estate in more of a strategic way. And if you want more resources on that, just put it in the chat box. And I'll get you a link to some more resources on just that.
Okay.
Really good question.
Excuse me, but this is Jenny, while you were on that same slide, would you speak briefly about the self-directed IRA or 401k?
Yeah, absolutely.
At the bottom?
I'll use this opportunity to remind everybody that I'm not an accountant or even, I mean, play one on TV for that matter. So please make sure you go to your accountant for any specific strategies. But the idea is that the way some self-directed IRAs and 401ks work is it gives you let's say I've got $500,000 in my 401k. It's just sitting there. It's gaining a little bit of momentum, but quite frankly, it's maybe 5, 6, 7, 8% per year. And so I want to put it to work. I can take $200,000 of that money. And there are certain types of real estate I can buy. There's certain types, I can't put debt on the property, but I can buy a house at $200,000, own it free and clear, put a tenant in that house,
What?
Earn the rent on that. The rent has to go into your 401k. In essence, there are ways of there are companies that do this, and then the appreciation builds over 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and all of a sudden you look back and you realize, oh my gosh, with that $200,000, my return on that, it could very well be 15, 20, 25% return. So that's one example of using the self-directed IRA to buy real estate. But you can also create an entity that takes that money and lends it to investors. Let's say I want to do a fix and flip. I need hard money. I need 100 grand for 6 months. And I'm willing to pay a flat 10% fee for that money for 6 months. That means that you are earning a 20% annualized return on that $100,000. That's really good money. And again, the proceeds have to stay in your retirement account. You can't pull that out. Again, I'm not an accountant. I may have misspoke on a few elements around that, so please check with your accountant, but just know this. It's an
So
incredible
Chris,
opportunity.
Chris,
Yeah.
yeah, this is Brenda Straub. I'm just, so then you're not like what they call fortune builders. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I do know of Fortune Bill. I know of that entity, that organization.
Okay, but it doesn't seem that they, for some reason, they want a large fee, just to go to their meetings, but it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like you're that way.
No. So I'm going to reiterate it because it's so important. Fortune Builders is a nationally recognized real estate investment training company. They charge tens of thousands of dollars to be a part of their quote unquote club.
I
Go to
saw
their functions and learn from them. And if that's what you want to do, that's great. But my argument always is don't spend money. Take that money and put it into real estate. Be a part of groups like this. There are local real estate groups in your communities. There's the real estate investment group that they're in all different markets. There's no reason to pay money for that. This is information that is not proprietary. What we're going over today is not proprietary. It's in the open source, if you will. And there's tons of it. So just be really thoughtful about that. Okay, let's move on to step number 3 because the clock is a-ticking. This is a big question. How to pick the right market to invest in real estate. So with prices so high in so many locations, in my breakout group, there's a gentleman in there who lives in New Jersey. He's buying property in Illinois. It makes perfectly good sense. People oftentimes ask the question of should they invest close to home or choose a new market? And listen, it's a great question because the market you choose can ultimately make a big difference in your final results. Now, personally, I gotta tell you, I prefer to invest close to home if at all possible. Being local gives you the advantage of intimate knowledge of the actual market. And while managing real estate from a distance can be done, it's still more efficient and it's more effective if you can to do it local. So I would start by evaluating markets that are really close to your house. If prices seem too high in your local neighborhoods, explore a few ideas and areas locally first before looking at different locations. So I'd start by driving like an hour or 2 away. That's a lot better than an airplane flight. Often the suburbs of major metropolitan or urban areas become really affordable and are they're cherry picked for possible investments. Second, look for smaller niches within your overall market, right? Within high price markets, niches like condos, mobile homes, townhomes, tax liens, like all of these oftentimes really become great alternatives, but close to home. But whether you stay close to home or you invest somewhere else, you should always do a market analysis first. So I want to give you some tools around that. Here's a summary guide if you're brand new to the kind of idea of market analysis for rental properties. First of all, number 1, evaluate the big picture location criteria, like regionally. So what's happening with jobs, with economics, right, in that regional area? What's happening with population growth? Is it going up or is it going down? And what are typical rent and to price ratios? Like these are just important things. Part of becoming a real estate investor is not waking up in the morning and going, hey, I want to become a real estate investor. Voila, wave the magic wand and you are one. No, it's work. It's dedicating some time every week, an amount of time every week, which we'll talk about later, to doing the business. And this is part of the business. Second thing, in creating that market analysis, I want you to evaluate small scale location criteria, right? So things like profitable spreads between fixer uppers and retail price of properties. Easy to do with the MLS system, seeing what properties sold for and then when they resold. Profitable ratios of rent to price for income properties. Like what are properties renting for based on what you're paying for them. Things like convenience, really important if you want to be attracting college students and you need to be close to a campus, right? Romance is really like that. What makes that part of town really desirable? Walkability, safety and crime rates. A lot of this stuff you can get from really good website sources. In fact, many of you have market leader websites that feature really good information on school districts, public transportation, safety and crime, neighborhood covenants, always. Like, these are things you just want to become really fluid with and knowledgeable about. Doesn't take a lot of time, but it does take time. So by combining all of this criteria, you can then choose what we call a target investment market, a target investment market. Choosing your target market will probably begin with that MSA, right? That larger region. Once you've got that larger region, then I recommend narrowing it down even further to zip codes, like getting to a zip code area, a school district, a census block, a carrier route, something that's easier to search. As important as evaluating and picking a target market is, like, just don't get stuck. I recommend making a choice as soon as possible and then keep moving forward. You can always go back and adjust it later and redefine it later. Listen, much of entrepreneurship is simply trial and error. You'll never be perfect. You can test your hypothesis and then return back to this step if you choose, if the market you selected or chose isn't quite the right market.
Girl, relax.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good time to
He
relax.
always freaks out when Dinah tries to get
It's
close.
not on you, but that's half the fun. Okay, Dave, I want to pop back out real quick, about a minute or two. And I want everyone I want you to verbalize or write down, if your group isn't there, your idea for a target market. I want to share it with the group, commit to it now. Does it offer you a good picture of your criteria? What neighborhoods or smaller locations within your region could make the very best investing farm area? Dave, it's off to you, and we'll zip back into the groups.
Yep, and just real quick, because there's a lot of great comments coming through, and some of the comments are about people that you're meeting each other in these breakout rooms, but they don't know who you are because you're Stephen Dangerfield. So please go up and change your name with the 3 dots so the people in your group can know who you are, and you can reach out later. Turn your cameras on, accept the invite. Let's go.
Nice job.
Hey, Chris, Brandon Rick. I just got to step out. I got a showing at 2:30 in Lafayette, so I got to roll.
Awesome, man. Great to see you. We'll
too.
make sure you have a recording. Catch you later.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, bye now.
Bye.
Okay, Craig, we are back. If you take your phone off mute, let's go to Dave for some questions.
All right, Chris, let's see. Our first question is, if I own a property in an expensive area, should I sell it and buy a few homes in a less expensive area for better ROI, even if they are out of the area? The goal here, or her goal, is how do I take what I've got and grow it for a cash flow?
Yeah, really good question. So a couple things come to mind. First of all, determining where you are in that. Are you in growth or are you in income? I'm guessing you're one of those two, given the information. Understanding the power and leverage of the 1031 tax-free exchange. That's an important tool when you're thinking about that, because it gives you the ability to do that, what you're talking about. I would also be looking at appreciation rates, right? Where you've got these 2 or 3 smaller properties. Are you in fact better off keeping those because of the appreciation rates, or because you're able to spread the risk out over more properties? If you have one bigger property, maybe more risk. So these are things to be thinking about. There's no size fits all, and obviously much of this has to do with the market you're in. I'm guessing, are you in California by chance?
This is Catherine Green. I think you probably know her.
Oh, hello. Hello.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I was coming back from the group and I didn't hear the beginning of the conversation.
No problem. It was in reference to the question regarding taking your current properties and shifting those to another marketplace, maybe consolidating some of those properties, just simplify, less hassle, being able to use a 1031 for that. I'm going to turn it over to Craig, the brighter of the two minds, to weigh in his opinion on that as well.
Thank you. Yes, I'm looking to expand the return on my investment, and I'm considering, do I risk going far away? Because Silicon Valley is, well, crazy.
It is.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it is crazy. I mean, it's what a fantastic ride you took on the equity train if you've been there for any number of years, and you know, it's risk equals reward, right? And so you get to a certain point. What I've done with clients in the past, you get to a certain point where you have so much equity. I work in Southern California, so a lot of my investors are Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, these really high-end beach towns. And you watch their equity grow for a few years, and they've got so much equity, but they're not getting the cash flow because the property, there's so much value in the equity of the property. It's not correlating, the cap rate's not correlating with the cash flow. So what we do a lot of times is we take those properties, we look at their portfolio, go over their portfolio and say, wow, look at all this equity you have in here. It's not working hard enough for you because the property is appreciated so much. So then we take a big chunk of a big property like that, sometimes break it up into 2 or 3 smaller properties and buy in areas that have more potential growth. And what happens a lot of times, they see their cash flow sometimes double. And the beautiful part is, as Chris said, if you do it via 1031, you don't pay the taxes until you actually sell the property, because a 1031 is not a sale, it's a trade, right? So what you're doing is you're trading for equal or greater value. The IRS leaves you alone on the taxes until you actually sell. And so you can take millions of dollars and move them via IRS 1031 and not pay a dime in taxes. And if you never sell it till the day you die, you never pay those taxes. So it's really a beautiful strategy. And what a lot of people do in a situation like yours, where they've had such gains in equity, but the dollars in the property aren't really producing enough income for the value.
Greg, what cap rate are you looking for?
You know, that's a great question. And so, you know, depending on what area you are, I mean, my gosh, you know, cap rates are all over the board. I mean, if I'm looking in downtown Manhattan Beach, we'll just take my area for a good cap rate in the Sand Second of Manhattan Beach be 2.5%, 3%, nothing. But if I go a little bit inland, just a little bit inland to Long Beach, I'm going to get a double cap rate. I'm going to get 6%, 7%. If I go to San Bernardino County, which is closer to, you know, the really inland, now I'm getting 8 or 10%. So what I always ask investors when we start is, what are you looking for? Are you looking for cash flow, or are you looking for appreciation? I always ask that question. It's a bit of a trick question because I know everybody answers it the same way. They always say both. And I say, great, that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants both. But what is your goal? Like Chris talked about earlier, what's your goal? Is your goal, if you're in your 20s or 30s or even 40s, your goal should be to build appreciation. If you're in your 50s or 60s like I am, or 70s, your goal is probably cash flow. So depending on what your goal is, That's where you start to look at where you want to, what type of investment you want, and then what type of cap rate or return you want. So I try and get people that are just starting out to really look at the idea of appreciation instead of cash flow, to build that wealth, and then use IRS 1031 to transfer that wealth into an area and to a property that will give them greater cash flow when they need it.
Great advice. Craig, thank you so much. Dave, I think we should do this. Unless there's one more compelling question, save the questions until the end, and then we'll hit them all at the end. I want to make sure we get the content covered. You're on mute. Oh,
Yeah, no problem.
cool.
That'll work. We'll hold off.
Great questions, by the way. Keep them loading in there. We're going to get to them, but I want to make sure that we get everything covered. Okay, back on the screen, you should be seeing now, with any luck at all, step number 4. This is where we start talking about your investment property criteria. It tells you and others what it means to have a quote unquote good investment. I actually recommend putting your criteria into writing. It is something called your target property profile. And this profile is something you can share with potential partners, investors, and sources of leads, like, you know, people that may be working with in the business. So your target property profile should include the descriptions of 2 major categories, right? We're talking about your target property type, the type of property you want to become the expert on, you want to focus on. And then what are your target terms, AKA the numbers, right? What Craig was just talking about, cap rates, gross rent multipliers, those kinds of things. How you decide a target property type, it's really pretty straightforward. It usually becomes much clearer when you have a niche within your overall target market. You might have heard the old phrase, riches are in niches. This is because some of the most successful entrepreneurs and investors focus on a smaller segment of a larger market. This will help you become an expert on your chosen niche instead of being sort of that jack of all trades, master of none scenario. Now, there are many niches within the real estate market, and to find the ones that work actually takes just a little bit of experimentation. But here are some ideas just to kind of get you started. So there are things like single family homes, right? That's a niche that people work. Maybe small multifamily apartments, 2, 3, 4 units. Under 5 units, financing is usually easier with those types of units. Then as you get more sophisticated, or maybe with owner carry financing or other options, the medium multifamily apartment buildings, 5 to 100 units. Then the big ones. And these are oftentimes, talk about a niche market, the players in the large multifamily apartment business. Then there are condos and townhomes, right? People that are willing to trade the idea of covering expenses, things like exterior maintenance and roofs and sewer lines and septic systems. They're willing to trade all of that maintenance for an HOA, an association fee. Mobile homes on land, mobile home parks, commercial, self-storage, land, syndications, private notes. I mean, there are all kinds of opportunities in that area called property niches. Then there's that seller, the actual, like, now don't think about the property, think about where the property comes from, where you can get the property, preferably, ideally at a better price. So this could be anything from foreclosures, pre-foreclosure, short sales, bank-owned, REO, bankruptcy. Listen, with 22 million people unemployed, we're bound to get some more of this kind of opportunity coming down the line. Burned out landlords. These are oftentimes landlords who didn't approach this business the right way. They didn't understand it. Or in some cases, they inherited properties and they never wanted to be in the property business, but they became into the property business. Estates, probate, any kind of damages, code violations, divorces, tax. There's a number of those opportunities. But again, it goes back to are you going to focus? Are you going to get really good? Will you become the expert in some of these areas? But it goes further. So we had seller niches, but then you also have end user. What is your long-term use? What is the long-term use of the property today? So for example, properties that are long-term rentals, properties that are Airbnb, short-term rentals, nightly rentals, vacation rentals, student rentals. We have a lot of people that focus on Section 8, right? They're government assistance. They get their check every month from the US government for the rent to own and seller financing. And then there are the special needs group rentals. So that's a big business in some markets. So it's just being really clear. You see, the way you can get successful is being able to focus in on cutting through all the noise of all the options that are out there. There are also niches within the fix and flip business if you choose to go that route. The point is that you should explore one or two of these smaller segments within the market, because as a result, it'll become really clear what types of properties that you need to target to become successful. For example, if you're in niches like, let's say it's student rentals, you want to have properties that meet the needs of students, like being close to campus, on a bus line, walkability, near restaurants, right? All those things. If you're in the niche of, let's say, pre-foreclosure or short sales, you'll want to find neighborhoods with more foreclosures. You'll want to learn and study the nuances of that niche. Once you've chosen a niche and target, and those target property types, you can then move into the terms or the numbers of the deal. And that's where I want to go with you right now. And that's this idea of the actual numbers. The second category I spoke of is this target property profile, is the ideal terms. I want to share with you a summary of the highlights. They can get really complicated, right? They can get spreadsheets and documents and calculators and all kinds of stuff. But your first analysis, I think, should always be simple, like something you can do in the back of an envelope, right? It's got to pass the first initial sniff test, if you will. And my version of this sort of back of the envelope analysis looks at two key things, just two things: income and equity. The two things that, quite frankly, Craig just mentioned a few minutes ago in the Q&A. So first of all, in the income analysis, there are a lot of resources you can use. And if you don't know what these things mean, you can Google them easily. You can find the answers simply. But the first thing you're going to hear a lot about in residential real estate investment is called a GRM, a gross rent multiplier. It's that ratio of price to the annual income. It's very simple, but it's very universal. The 1% rule, which I'm not sure still applies. It doesn't apply very well in my market. But the idea behind that is that whatever your rent is, it should equal approximately 1% of the purchase price. So if you're buying something for $300,000, you should get $3,000 a month for it. If you're buying something for $500,000, you should get $5,000 a month in rent. We can't do that here, but in some markets you can. But it's having your rule. Is your rule 0.75? Is your rule 0.7? You need to know what your guidelines are. Cap rate, which is exactly what the gentlemen were just talking about a minute ago. And that's, again, determining the value of a property. It's a net operating income divided by the current value of the property. The 50% rule, the idea that your expenses of owning a property outside of debt, no debt, the operating expenses should never exceed 50% of your gross income. Net income ratios, cash on cash return, meaning if I put $10,000 into a property to buy it, and I get $5,000 a year in free cash flow, then that cash on cash, in that case, is 50%. But it's just knowing what your numbers are. It's in advance, determining what you need to get the results you're looking for, and then use that as your quick test. Now, for the equity analysis, I look at some simple things also. Like I look at the discount at the time of the purchase. Like, am I getting, is this a deal? Is it because it's like a house that's in bad condition and I can buy it for 10% under market? Is it a foreclosure? Is it, can I create some opportunity at the very beginning? I also look at what's called forced appreciation. And this is, this would be like buying a property and remodeling it, knowing that if I add a fourth bedroom, then it's gonna bounce up in price more than the cost to do the work. And there are certain things you can do to create this immediate or forced appreciation. The principal pay down over time is very powerful because the idea is pay off your mortgages, right? And if you own a property for 15 years and it's amortized on a 15-year note, you have retired all of the debt on that property. Now it's all free cash flow. So that matters. What's your ratio around that? Passive appreciation. I don't like to count on this because who knows what's going to happen with appreciation, but I'll tell you, it's something that fortunately has been a really big play for a lot of people that own real estate. It's that idea that houses over time are worth more than they were when you bought them. Doesn't happen every time, but it happens a lot of the time. I'm a numbers guy. I love data. So I'm going to share with you what I use. It's a series of spreadsheets, super easy to use. I think I paid $40 for it. well worth the money. It's from a site called the Healthy Wealthy Wise Project. Just Google the name. If you get the deck, you can just click the link. It'll take you right to it. It's incredible, and it's so simple. You just put in the basic property information, bedrooms, bathrooms, all the address, etc. On tab number 2, you simply put in the loan that you intend to get. You can put 3 or 4 loans in if you want to. It computes everything. You put the interest rate you can get, you put the percent you want to put down, it calculates the payment, it calculates all the amortization schedules on 1, 2, 3, or 4 mortgages you have on the property. You also put in the tax information. Once you've done that, next tab, you put in your estimate for the rental income. You can have multiple units, as you can see on the slide here. You can have different bedroom, bathroom sizes. You can put it takes all that information into account. Then you tell the system what you think the appreciation of your rental rate, maybe it's 1% a year, 2% per year, plug that in. And then you put in your operating expenses. If you don't know, it's going to give you some good ideas. But you'll know how much the taxes are. You'll know how much the HOA is if you have an HOA. Then you may use some ratios for repairs and for maintenance. And then you put in what you think the actual home appreciation will be. And then, boom, literally at the drop of a hat, it walks you through a full first-year investment summary. It shows you cash on cash. It shows you cap rate. It shows you GRM. It shows you all the drivers. The amazing thing is it's all done for you. If you're sitting down talking to a banker, a partner in your investment business, it's this kind of information that is so valuable, but it also demonstrates that you know what you're doing. It demonstrates that this information matters to you. The next 2 tabs show you actually a full 10-year return. It takes a property out 10 years and it shows you exactly what all your returns are. It's one of the most powerful tools I've ever used. I wish I developed the system. I didn't. I just bought it. I use it. I love it. And it's something you can use as well as you see fit. And oh, by the way, there are millions of options and alternatives online. So just Google real estate investment spreadsheets and you'll see many of them are free. That's just the one I found that I like the best. Okay, so now it's back to you, right? Some deals meet my goals because they're a property type, others because they meet the income analysis, others meet both goals, but that isn't always the case. The important part is to know what is your criteria, what matters to you. Don't overcomplicate it. Pick 2, here's how basic it can be. I could say, I want attached dwellings because I don't want to worry about exterior maintenance and repairs. So my target is going to be condos and townhomes with an association. And all that matters to me is a gross rent multiplier and the cash on cash return. That's all I care about. Start somewhere. And then once you're clear on that, start looking at properties that meet that criteria. You can always modify down the road. So Dave, if you would send us back to our groups real quick, I want everyone to verbalize what's your property type and what are your terms that are important to you. If you don't know, just say you don't know, you're still figuring it out. But I'd recommend pick one, learn about it. Dave, we're ready to roll.
Righty, and this time, since we got a lot of late people in and there's some rooms that nobody will come in, I'm gonna mix the rooms up a little bit, Chris, if that's okay.
Bravo. There we
Right?
go.
So you might see some different people this time. Here we go. Chris, what do we want to take? Maybe 2 minutes?
Yeah, two is plenty.
2 minutes, here we go, folks. You know the routine.
Okay, we are back. Back.
We
Let's
still
go.
have a few. We still have a few coming in. So hang tight just a
No
minute.
problem. I'm thinking we should defer the queue for now, if we can. I just want to make sure we're just stepping into step 5, and I want to make sure we
Yeah.
don't cut.
The one a common question is the spreadsheet you were using. Are they getting
yeah.
that? Where is it?
Okay, the spreadsheet is from a source, a website that I trolled called Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Project. And I'm looking to see if I've got a URL. We will be posting that at wealthbuilderexpo.com. So don't look there right now, but when we load up this deck, we'll have the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Project.com link there as well. So he's linked to it. I think it's $40 or $45. They also have a really good analysis for fix and flip. So if you're thinking about that, the one I showed you is just for hold, long-term hold, residential real estate or commercial real estate. Okie doke. Well, let's get rolling. We are now stepping into step number 5. Let me make sure our screen is sharing here, because this is a really important one. This is where we begin to value the team that you're building. And let me just start out by saying that, entrepreneurship and investing and life, quite frankly, oftentimes become lonely roads. And it's easy to feel like we have the weight of the world on our individual shoulders. And those of you who know me fairly well will be surprised that I'm going to share a sports quote. But it's from famed basketball coach John Wooden, who said, "The main ingredient of stardom is the rest of your team." So no matter what we seek to accomplish, our success or failure will depend in large part upon the actual team that we assemble around us. In team sports, this fact is obvious, like overly obvious, but it holds just as true for real estate investing. So here are a few principles that I found helpful as you begin to look at building a real estate team. Now, it's not a real estate sales team. Don't misunderstand me. We're not talking about that. But even if you're at the stage where your business is just kind of, it exists in your imagination, you're just thinking it through, you can definitely now begin by organizing your thoughts in your actual team in your mind. So my favorite method of organizing any of my ideas, but especially the first draft of a team, is what is called a mind map. And I got started using mind maps when I read How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci, a great book by Gelb. And then there's also a little more detailed one called the Mind Map book by Tony Buzan. And in each one of these ones, you'll kind of get a quick example of how it works. But let me just kind of share with you what it can look like. I mean, literally, it's like back of a piece of paper. You just draw it out. You just put in all the elements you think you need to have to run your business. And let me go into a little more depth on this. I've taken some of the most important roles in my mind, at least from my mind map, and put it into an actual list. And you can have the best chance, I think, of finding the key team members by networking with other like-minded business investors. You can do this locally. There's a group called the REIA, the Real Estate Investor Association, REIA. I recommend that you seek that out in your local area, or even things like Chamber of Commerce works out great. Or there's some really good online, like biggerpockets.com, local meetups. They're just really good for this kind of stuff. But nevertheless, the inner circle is really your personal closest team members, right? It might be your spouse, might be a business partner, might be a mentor, personal advisor. And then inside of that support circle, it's sort of your fiduciary, your critical relationships that help you with the important ongoing tasks. This would be a property manager if you want to have someone manage your property for you. Would be an attorney that understands real estate law, a CPA or bookkeeper that understands the tax implications. And then a lender, and not just a lender, like we're talking about, yes, like GRA for long-term financing, but we're also talking about a hard money lender and a private money lender. We'll talk more about what that is in a quick second. But then in the service circle, like these are functional relationships for tasks that you're going to just have to have done, right? It could be your closing company, your home inspector, your electrician, your plumber, your HVAC. I met my handyman this morning at one of my rental properties because we're doing a turnover and I want to get it cleaned up. Your painter, your yard service. I don't do yard service. That's why I do attached dwellings. pest and moisture control. I mean, the list goes on. Like, this is just for you to start thinking about that, because you're only as good as the people you put around you, right? And all these people, again, where do you get their names? You get them from other investors. You get them from trade organizations or the Real Estate Investor Association. Now, because your team is the foundation of your personal success, the quality of your individual team members is absolutely crucial. If you have a weak link in that chain, the entire process can begin to fail. And it also determines the pleasure of the business that you're in. If you got great people around you, it's a great business. If you have terrible people around you, it's a really hard business. So choosing and recruiting the right people applies both to any potential business partners, so investors that you might have, as well as other members of your team. As a rental, the landlord, in that role, this concept also applies and extends to your tenants who become team members as well. So there are a lot of pieces around this. In my own investment business, like over the years, I got to tell you, I've just experienced my share of excellent and poor members, right? And so you look at really what matters. So there are a couple things. Competency. The person you choose must be able to fulfill the needs of that specific role. For example, the person that's going to handle your bookkeeping, like they got to be a bookkeeper, right? They got to be able to understand and learn or excel in those bookkeeping skills. If you need someone to do leasing for you or customer service, they've got to be great communicators. Like, those are, I think, pretty straightforward, but competency is one of the key elements. Attitude. Oh my gosh, is the person a doer or are they a complainer? Do they bring people down or do they pick them up? The collective team attitude is critical to the overall success of the whole group. We all know it, right? Like, one bad individual, one bad attitude can ruin it for everybody else. Number 3, trustworthiness. Listen, if someone lies, cheats, acts dishonestly, they'll create a cancer within your team and your business that is hard to recover from. So it's worth taking the time when it comes to trustworthiness. And then lastly, alignment, right? The goals and values of the individual team members must be aligned with what the team wants to create as well. If they aren't, you'll just experience like tension and battles of tug of war as you go through the days and the activities. This is often why really good, honest people still fail at the business partnership, right? They're not aligned in what they're trying to create. So those 4 things really make a difference. And then this idea of being a servant leader. You are the leader of your team, but that doesn't mean that you need to be a ruthless dictator. The leaders that I respect the most equate to leading with serving, right? Like, these types of leaders often call themselves in the world servant leaders, right? Recognized that their positions not only make them, better because the people they serve are benefited by what they do. They know that if they support, empower, and serve their team members, then the overall objectives just get done. And it doesn't mean that you've got to be a pushover. That means you've got to acknowledge that the world doesn't evolve or revolve around you as the leader. It means that you put the mission of the team and the well-being of everyone above personal pride, right? And that this is part of the process. I think one of the best examples of servant leadership in our world today is over at Chick-fil-A. I mean, top executives routinely of that company spend at least one day a year, in some cases one day a month, the senior leaders at the counter at a restaurant. You'll regularly see like store owners sweeping floors or delivering food to a table, from the CEO right down to the part-time employees. It's that service is in their DNA. And boy, there's one thing you can create in the world that really goes a long way. So my hope is that the prospect of building or improving your team is really exciting, because I gotta tell you, like, my most enjoyable experiences in life have been the moments of victory, whether it be small or large, shared with my team leaders, team members. I mean, that's just where we really connect on stuff. But again, don't underestimate the power and value of that team. And unlike other forms of investing, it's fairly, Let's go on to the next section. Are there any questions on that one? I just skipped right over the breakout, but there's really no breakout for section 5. But having that team and building your team is of vital importance.
Not really any real questions in the chat, Chris, so go ahead and move on.
Cool, let's go right on to step number 6. We're making good time. So this is interesting, right? Because unlike any other forms of investing, it's fairly normal to use financing to help you with your real estate purchase. Like you don't go out and buy stocks and usually borrow against a stock. It's not normal to use a margin account. But in real estate, it's really common. And there are a lot of options to choose from. But we've got to make sure we understand what those choices are. So there are a lot of words on these slides. I apologize. But I did that because I want you to be able to reference back to this information and get the detail. But there are 7 primary forms of financing source that are available to you. First of all, it's an FHA, the Federal Housing Administration loans, right? These are secured or insured, I should say, by the federal government. And they're easier to qualify than most programs. They usually involve a small down payment, a fixed interest rate, and a long-term loan length, which is valuable. VA is very similar to an FHA, but you must be a veteran to qualify. And if you are a vet, you guys take advantage of this. Like the VA loans are really great loans. There are many cases 0% down, they're fixed annual rates, they're long-term, they're just great loans that only certain people can get. Now, conforming loans, very popular. These are loans that are actually purchased ultimately by Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and they may, from an investment standpoint, they're traditionally a 20% down product. So you got to put more money down, but I'm a fan of putting more money down. They're predominantly fixed rate, but you can get them adjustable rate. And again, they're long-term opportunities to be able to finance property. There's something called portfolio loans. And these are loans that are kept by commercial banks and or lending institutions, and they're not sold off. So they don't sell this loan to Freddie or Fannie, they keep it. It gives them more flexibility to be able to loan on properties that maybe would not qualify for a conforming loan. You go to your local bank, not a lender, a traditional lender like a GRA. You'd go to your local bank and talk to them about the opportunities. In many cases, they can be long-term, but in many cases, they're shorter term. The interest rates are usually very competitive, but they don't have the same structural requirements of other loans. Now, moving off into the world of hard money loans. Now, these are lenders that, quite frankly, are mostly interested in the collateral. That means the property value. That's instead of looking necessarily at your ability to pay off the loan, they look at the property and say, if we get the property back, we can just sell it and get our money back. These usually require a much higher interest rate, a cost of entry, like an origination fee or two, or excessive, possibly. And then in many cases, these are used for short term. So hard money loans can be used to acquire a property quickly at a high cost, but it's worth it because maybe you're getting the property fast. You're saving 20 or 30% on the value of the property. So you don't mind paying 5, 6, 7, 8, 10% of the purchase price just for the loan, to get the loan. They're often held short term. So you might use that to remodel a property, then put a long-term loan on it and pay off the hard money. Private lenders, in many cases, are people that we talked about before, people at that income stage where they lend their money out. They're wealthy individuals. They lend money out to someone like you or I to either do a project. They're very flexible and they build great long-term relationship opportunities, of course. So that's one to look at as an opportunity as well. And the last one that I wanted to showcase is seller financing. And quite frankly, although it's my favorite, it's probably the hardest one to get. There are very few people that are in a position or in a place where they're actually willing to provide this type of financing. What it means usually is they own the property free and clear. They have no debt against it. What they're looking for is an income stream. So they're willing to trade, if you will, the property for the rental income for a fixed income stream over a period of time. But it works well, or they might do it for a short amount of time where they say, listen, we're just going to let you, you put 20% down, 30% down, take a year, there'll be a balloon at the end of a year. And balloon means all that money is due at the end of that year. Suffice it to say, there are 7 good options to be able to finance properties, but I think you would agree, or you will see that in the real world of real estate investment, it's very rare to see a zero down opportunity. We'll just address that in a quick second. This is actually a great time to do it. real estate investing is this idea, this business that allows us to use other people's money to help us move forward. So like, we understand that. But like I just said, like, don't count on building your entire real estate empire with no money down. Even if you use the highest leverage scenario, like the VA loan, if you take that VA loan 0% down, you want to have cash reserves, right? So how much cash do you need, and how do you raise it? Well, the amount of cash you need will depend upon your strategy, which we discussed in step number 2, and in the prices in your target market, right? The properties we looked at in section number 3, and then your property criteria that we talked about in step number 4. And you can also ask a lending team that we talked about in section number 5 about loans, how much money you need to put down. But let's just look at a quick, simple example. Let's say you decide to use this idea of house hacking, where you buy a property and maybe it's a duplex, and you have someone live in one side and you stay in one side. So you may be able to find an FHA loan. Let's use some simple math, 3.5% down payment. So you're gonna need about $5,200 as the down payment on the $150,000 purchase price. That's a very, very low down payment, but you're owner occupied because you're living in one of the units, so you can do that. You might need another, let's say $3,000 for closing costs. Just use these as examples. But then you may also need more cash for property improvements, right? And reserves, which people always seem to forget. In many cases, you can use a percentage of the purchase price. Other times you can use an actual dollar number. I like to use a figure of about 5 to 7% of the purchase price for what we don't expect to see happen. So the total cash required for this very low down example would still be $18,000, right? It's a $5,000 plus a $3,000 for a closing cost plus $10,000. I just wanted to make sure I pointed that out because I want to dispel this idea of, it's easy to get these zero down loans, which are so unreasonable, or zero down properties. So then the question is, how do you find the money? Like, let's say you're at the place now, you're either in stage 1 or 2, and you need to generate some cash to be able to begin this process. Well, there are 4 ways that I've seen most common to do this. First of all, save the money. I think that's the most obvious one, right? But sometimes you just need to make investing important. You got to work for the extra income. You got to cut the expenses out of your life that aren't as important as building your financial future. And you got to be patient until you save the money. There's just no shortcut here, but it does work. The second thing is sell some stuff, right? Can you sell your car and buy a less expensive one? Do you have expensive toys, wave runners or snowmobiles or things that you just don't need? Sell that stuff now. You can always buy it later, a boat, a plane, whatever you got. What about selling like a big home with a lot of equity, right? And you want to downsize. Well, cash out of the big home, pull some cash out, downsize, and put that cash to work. Number 3, borrowing. So this is one you got to be super, super careful with. So personally, I was comfortable borrowing money safely against long-term assets like rental properties. But personal loans on credit cards or lines of credit that you use for down payment can be super dangerous. Because the problem is if you don't have the cash flow to feed that in your investment property, then the whole thing begins to unwind. We don't want to see it happen. And the 4th thing, and very common, is this idea of partnering, right? It's like sharing this like delicious chocolate cake, right? Someone offers me this amazing chocolate cake for 50% off. But what if I don't have the money to buy it? Wouldn't it make sense to find a friend who does have the money and then split the cake with them? Now we both win. That's partnering in a nutshell. It's worked so well for so many people. So just don't rule that one out. There are a lot of people with money, with cash, that aren't willing to take the time to really investigate what it takes to be successful in the business. That's where you come in. So the question I have for each one of you, and we'll just go ahead and do it as a personal question. I want you to write down in your book, on your paperwork, whatever you've got, I want you to write down, what are you willing to do? What kind of sacrifice are you willing to make this opportunity a reality? Which one of those 4 things speaks to you? Are you in a position where you're saving? Are you willing to sell something in exchange for this? Are you willing to borrow it? Are you willing to take that risk on to borrow that down payment reserve? Or does it make the most sense to find a partner, right? Okay, step number 7. How do you find the good deals? Listen, I'm here to tell you, the good deals just don't land in your lap. So finding the good deals is more like a treasure hunt. You got to turn over dozens of stones before you find that little hidden gem. There were periods like 2008 to 2011 during the Great Recession that was certainly the exception to this rule. The treasure hunt for real estate deals was much easier back in those days. Warren Buffett, in his 2016 letter to his shareholders, described, I think it really nicely, I've used it a bunch, and it says, every decade or so, dark clouds will fill the economic skies, and they'll usually briefly rain gold. When downpours of this sort occur, it's imperative that we rush outdoors carrying our wash tubs and not teaspoons, right? Well, my recommended plan for finding the best deals really falls into 2 different categories. The first category is creating a budget for marketing and then developing a marketing campaign to bring prospective deals to you. Now, there are a lot of possible marketing campaigns to choose from. And because marketing is not an exact science, the campaigns that are effective change like the wind. So I really recommend carefully testing different campaigns that work for you and then stick with what works. As we go through this, let me just kind of walk you through some examples here. So here's some things that are super low cost and free, like an MLS campaign. But here's the problem with an MLS campaign. Everyone has access to it. So you're not going to find the really good deals. You're going to find the deals that have been maybe picked over before the property hits the MLS. But it's a reasonable way. If you've got a good idea in an area we talked about earlier in step number 4 about picking out that right location or neighborhood or niche, it will still work. Referral or networking campaign to people that you know. Drive or walk for dollars. I love this one. This one I my most favorite choice. I go into neighborhoods I think there's an opportunity, and I just get out of my car and I walk around. And you meet people. You just talk to people in the neighborhood and you say, hey, I'm looking to buy a house in this area. And next thing you know, it's like, oh, Beverly, she's been talking about that. It's amazing. We're in the real estate business, and this is what we should be doing anyway. When you do it for your own benefit, the rewards are really, really big. Finding wholesalers or bird doggers. These are people who are actually out there flipping deals. You've seen their signs. You've seen like those cheese ball little signs that say, you know, we buy ugly houses and we buy fix and flips and we buy all of this. Oftentimes they're getting more properties than they know what to do with. So having a relationship with those wholesalers or bird dogs can be very, very fruitful. Just picking up the phone, calling in a neighborhood and talking to people in a certain subdivision or area really works. Classified ads. I don't mean like there are no more newspapers. I'm talking about like Craigslist, like put information in on certain sources, internet sources, where you can get ideas and leads and information about properties. And then of course, websites. Social media is phenomenal for this. Hey, looking for a property that, you know, needs work, looking for a property that you know, is distressed. If you've driven by one, you've seen one, just give me the address. I'll go to work on it. Really powerful. Now, for a little more higher cost, these areas of marketing really work. Like if you're really serious about this, it means putting together a budget. It might be $500, it might be $1,000 a month, but I tell you, direct mail works like a charm. And there are some great sources. So non-owner occupied houses, right? Those are a great source to mail to. Owner-occupied houses with big equity. Our title companies can help us out getting this kind of information. Multi-unit property owners, people that own duplexes, triplexes. In many cases, those people are tired. They've been managing the property. They've been working the property. They want to go do a 1031. They want to move the money somewhere else. You want to be the recipient of that 1031 on the other end. Expired listings, not just for the benefit of building your sales business, your real estate business, but also bird dog, and that's where you find some of these properties. Homeowners with delinquent property taxes, estates or probate properties, pre-foreclosure properties, foreclosure properties. I mean, the list just goes on. Having car signs, yard signs, other advertising. I mean, the bottom line is, how serious are you about buying a property at a better price. You have to realize that every single day, homes are being sold across America. This whole iBuying craze that we're seeing happen, that we're doing, that Zillow is doing, that Open Door is doing, people are not selling their homes to these companies because of the high price they're getting. They're selling their properties to these entities because it's quick and easy. If you can be the quick and easy, you've got opportunity. But make no mistake, if you think it's too hard to find the deals, you're missing the best deals. There are deals out there all the time, but it means being decisive about it. Okay, woo! You've received a ton of information. Oh my gosh, lots and lots of words. But I tell you, the point of this session, the fundamentals of real estate investing, is to help you get started as quickly as possible. We've gone through 7 different steps. Step 8 is where you commit. You move into action, right? This is what is so critical about what we're doing right now. As we go through this, listen, you know your life and you know your schedule better than anybody else does. But I assume, like most people, you're just busy, right? So here's an important question for you. How much time are you and your spouse or your partner or the people that are important to you, how much time are you willing to carve out each month to work on your real estate investing business? Be realistic. But if getting started with real estate investing is important to you, also, you've got to be ruthless with your priorities. This isn't a forever project. You'll spend more time for the next few months and into this next year. But later, as you gain momentum, buy properties, build systems, it will consume much less time because your systems are in place. So how much time can you carve out? Based on my prior experience and helping other people one-on-one, it's probably anywhere from 8 to 10 hours per week. You got to carve it out. It's got to be in your schedule, right? And if you're really, if this is something that you're doing and you're moving towards a full-time opportunity, it's 20, 30 hours or more to increase your chances. So my recommendation is look at your calendar, block out specific times to work, and just make the commitment to get started. 90% of this process is just starting. Think of it like a doctor's appointment. It's got to be in your calendar or you're not going to show up. But once you block that time, then you can focus on the actions of really making stuff done. It's a great book from David Allen on really how to prioritize your time, how to make that important. I've got some next steps that I put together for you. And for now, quite frankly, I just recommend write down the 1 or 2 projects that must happen next to start your investing real estate business. Projects are everything that requires more than one step to accomplish. That's a project, right? And you'll notice that this session was organized in step by step for a reason. We went through this for that reason. If you're not sure what to do, just go back to step number 1 and start working your way back through it. Next, identify those next actions. Write down the next 2 or 3 actions that you got to do in order to move forward on your projects. For example, your actions may be review the recording of this session. That goes in your calendar, right? It is scheduled inside of your priority. And then the next piece is obviously that next action, and then that next action. It's a daisy chain that you just got to work your way through. So write down those 2 or 3 actions you've got to do to get the ball rolling, right? And then the process keeps going and going, and you continue finding more and more actions until the project is actually done. Then you move to the next project and the next project, the next. What happens then is when you finish all your projects, you accomplish your goals. And of course, what comes next, you guessed it, you move on to the next goal, which might be your next house. It might be a fix and flip. It might be learning more, but it's a really fun and profitable game, but it really is like a game to play. Question really is, how badly do you want it, right? And how committed are you to the goal? And utilizing the people that you've made a relationship with, hopefully you've got a phone number or a contact info of somebody you met with, having that accountability partner really helps. I've got a couple of tips in here for success, and quite frankly, you get that on the deck. None of these 8 tips should be a surprise to any one of you as you see that. They're all common sense. They're all based on the 8 steps we just went through together. But first, I want to thank Dave Metton for his time today. I want to, before you leave, don't leave because this is the coolest part of the whole deal. We've got Craig O'Rourke here, and Craig has put together something that many of our agents in Denver have gone through, and really bridging the gap to how do you serve this idea of being able to be an investment expert to clients and customers, which ultimately gives you the skill that you need to be successful. So Craig, if you'd be willing, I would love to have you address the group for a minute or two, and I'd be happy to tee up the video whenever you'd like me to, but I got to make sure that I can get it to play inside of the system. So Craig, the floor is yours. Hey, hit speaker view in the upper right-hand corner to see Craig full size, almost full size.
Thanks, Chris. Well, listen, first of all, what a great presentation. You touched on so many things, Chris, and I think, I see we still have quite a few people on board. So I think, as Chris said, your next step really is to sit down, review this tape, go through it, and really understand. There's so much information for you to absorb. As Chris said, I've created a class. It's called Learn It, List It, Sell It, where I teach real estate agents how to really understand real estate investors and how to serve them, how to open up a new stream of business from right within your own sphere of influence. I mean, you don't even have to door knock or cold call or anything. All the people you already sold homes to, they know you, they trust you, they came to you for their first real estate investment, their home. So what my class does, it teaches you to start to understand how to understand cap rates, gross rent multipliers, how to understand different deals, how to find the right deal. Oh, here's my my promo video. Great.
Yeah, it looks like you.
Yeah, it's me. So how to understand the deal, and it's and I'll let you play the video in a minute, but I'll tell you real quick what I'm doing for this course. My course sells for $500. It's a 7-part video course with a 184-page workbook. I'm doing it for this group for my good friend Chris for $99. And at the end of it, in November 16th, I believe, I'm doing a 90-minute live session where I review the whole thing with question and answer. So if you have any interest in it, Chris, I'll give you the link to send out to everybody. And let's go ahead and play the video, and we'll go from there.
You ready to increase your book of business without prospecting? Then Learn It, List It, Sell It is for you. This 6-part course is a unique learning experience that will teach you the advanced skill set of selling income-producing properties, coupled with a dynamic marketing platform that will show you how to generate new business from within your current sphere. No cold calls or door knocking needed. This program will show you how to create a powerful call to action that will have your business coming to you. This innovative course is unlike any class you've ever taken before. Here's why. You'll learn the skill set of the industry elite. You'll learn how to calculate cap rates, gross rent multipliers, cash on cash return, and so much more. You'll be able to lead conversations involving real estate investment strategies. You'll learn how to handle objections to real estate investing, create a marketing platform that generates new business from within your own sphere, and how to build true wealth for both you and your clients. You owe it to yourself, your clients, and your family to take this course.
Did the sound work?
Yes, it was great.
Oh my gosh, it's a miracle. Fantastic. Okay. We've had a couple hundred agents in Colorado take the class. It is phenomenal. If you want to grow your business from a sales perspective, generate more revenue and learn the trade, wow, what a great way to be able to do that. All right, so with that said, let me just figure out how to Huh. Well, you know what? Who needs a stinking deck, right? Let's just wrap this thing up. First of all, Craig, thank you very, very much. I super appreciate your expertise, your time today. I know how incredibly busy you are. You've got a number of big time clients and you live this every single day of your life. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Thank you for sharing this class with us. And thank you for the crazy good deal on it. That's really generous of you. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Chris.
You bet. Listen, on October the 15th, we continue our journey into the world of real estate investment. Join us as we feature the skills and talent of nationally known fix and flip personality, Mark Ferguson. Mark has written books. He's been featured on podcasts, TV shows, and in October, he is all yours live on the Wealth Builder stage. Again, a quick shout out, a quick thank you to our partners and friends at GRA. Listen, Guaranteed Rate Affinity is not only an incredible real estate services partner, but also makes our Wealth Builder Expos a reality. Love to have them with us. And I think I can say it's a wrap for today's session. As a reminder, the recording of the entire session, The Fundamentals of Real Estate Investing, can be found at wealthbuilderexpo.com, probably in about a day or two. And a big, massive Coldwell Banker thank you goes out to Chad Carson, to Craig O'Rourke, and to Dave Metton for making today's session so informative. And until I see you again, which should be in October on the 15th, I'm Chris McGatt, encouraging you to stay focused, stay disciplined, and committed to ensure that your best financial years are just around the corner. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to hang out for a couple of Q&A questions. If you've got some, I am all yours. Otherwise, have an incredible day, and do me a favor, get started. There's no reason not to. Okay, I'm going to hang for some Q&A. So
Hey, Chris, and by the way, because there was a lot of great questions that came in, and I've been tracking them, what I think we should do is when we post it to the wealthbuilderexpo.com, we should post the answers to these questions. So I'm going to send you the questions. Maybe even Craig might be able to answer a couple.
Oh, that'd be great.
Then we can post those, and they've asked for the deck a lot. Maybe we can post a PDF version of the deck so we can
I'm gonna
have
post
the recording, their questions answered, and that deck ready for them.
Absolutely. And I am happy to take any questions live right now. Just take your phone off mute. I'm going to hang here with you because we're all in this together.
We get the link to Craig's class, or how do we register, please?
Yes, Renee, thank you for that question. I'm going to get that link from Craig in a few minutes. I have all of your email addresses. I will send that out to everyone in the next hour.
And what about like the PDF of what you were showing? Are we able to get that?
Yes, in fact, I'm going to get you not only the deck, PDF deck, also all of my notes that I use when I go through this. So you're going to have a tremendous amount of information that will be available at www.wealthbuilderexpo.com. Not today, but probably end of business tomorrow or on Monday morning.
And it'll be like with the recording of this, or we'll be able to
you have a full record. You won't have the breakout sessions because we can't record those, obviously.
Right.
But Dave is going to extract the actual recording of this. And then we're going to be, I see a message here from Stephen Dangerfield. I'm not sure. Is it the real one? Something about the October 15th class.
I doubt it.
Any other questions?
Yes, this is Wanda calling from Chicago. Good afternoon.
Hey, Wanda.
How do you get beyond the fear of actually getting out there and doing it?
Yes. This is the biggest thing, right? Because we all, our logical mind hears what we just talked about. Like, it all makes good common sense. But then when it's time to like pull the trigger, like make an offer on a property, everybody, not everyone, many people lock up. The idea, I think, for me is remove the options. That's why it's so important to decide, where am I right now? What's my wealth step right now? What am I comfortable doing? What are my options inside of there? And then getting crystal clear on deciding what it is your type of property. So I would start with, is it a single family home? Is it attached dwelling? Like, start with the very basic, and then start with what area. Because if you feel comfortable with the area and the type of property and the return you want to get on that property, then the paralysis leaves you. And you have the ability to begin to step in and make that first offer. And realize one of the beautiful things about real estate, it's not like buying a stock that you buy it $5 a share and all of a sudden it's worth nothing. House is going to be worth something, right? Because we're in the business, we know that. So being able to have that confidence, excuse me, makes a big difference.
Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Question. If investing in like townhomes or condos, sometimes there's a ratio of how many can be in that particular area.
Yes.
What is your recommendation on how to get the information on what's really there, so that you're not moving in and then you realize they've met that threshold?
So this touches on this idea that is a fundamental truth in real estate investing, and that is bad financing can almost certainly ruin a really good investment. What I mean by that is the house could be the perfect house at the perfect price in the perfect area with the perfect rental opportunity. But if your financing is terrible, then it isn't going to work. Like, it unwinds everything. So here's a recommendation going back to your question. Condominiums and townhouses oftentimes have certain ratios. If you want that property to be able to fall into certain federal guidelines for good loans. So if you're looking at a non-conforming property, let's say it's a project of 16 condominiums and you don't have enough owner-occupied ratio. So Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae will not buy that loan. FHA will not insure that loan. So now I'm stuck with private financing, maybe portfolio financing. So you may find a property with a really good price. Well, the price is because no one can buy it unless they buy cash. So that's when you want to go to a local bank and see if they'll do a non-conforming loan. Many cases, local banks are like, oh yeah, we know that project. It's been around for 10 years. We're comfortable with it. Great. But that's critical. That's why it's important to understand those ratios when it comes to sometimes smaller condominium or townhouse projects, or even big ones with a lot of investors and not many owner occupants. Easy to overcome, meaning you find out the information quickly, and then you can make a decision. Comes off your list. Yep. And Craig, chime in. If I misspeak or you've got an idea, don't be shy.
You're absolutely on the money on that. Absolutely. You know, everything, Chris, you were on the money on every single thing you talked about. And I love the fact that, you know, really what you said early on when you said that this is building wealth slowly. It takes time. Nothing in real estate is supposed to happen fast. You know, you know, you look how long just a residential real estate transaction takes, and it takes time and energy and money and focus to build wealth in real estate. But if you do it right, you build really sustainable wealth. You know, one of the things I didn't get a chance to talk about, there's a couple people here and I'll just throw it out. The most beautiful thing about investing in real estate is when you talked about the tenant, and it's that self-funding, self-sustaining component of those tenant dollars coming in month after month, year after year, decade after decade, that creates this sort of this ongoing self-sustaining investment that no other investment can match. You know, stock markets, when you go to invest in the stock market, most people that will help you with it, they're going to look at your stock portfolio, and they're going to do something they're going to work out a formula called the rule of 25 that's going to give you money to live for 25 years. What if you live longer? I mean, my gosh, my mom lived to 98. Her twin sister lived to 101. If they'd retired at 60 and gone by the rule of 25, they would have run out of money. Instead, my parents invested in real estate and they had a beautiful retirement. They never ran out of money. As a matter of fact, they handed a portfolio down to their children and their grandchildren. So really, you know, it's that self-funding, self-sustaining component of real estate that makes it so different and so valuable.
Craig, this is Wanda again. I have a question for you on that same front. When you're looking at that, and when you're doing your, what I would call your initial analysis on the back of an envelope, the cap rates don't seem to bode out. You know, they're just, I know that yours were woefully low. Here in Chicago, we should be looking more about 5 to 6%, and it's just not showing up. Should I be patient and wait? Because right now in Chicago, we're seeing a shortage of inventory.
Yeah,
so prices are high.
Yeah, that's a great question, Wanda, and there's so many pieces of that. Let me see if I can unravel it just a little bit for you. So first of all, a good rule of thumb, and this is just a rule of thumb because there's a lot of things that come into play, but if your cap rate is higher than your interest rate, you probably are going to make money. That's the first sort of rule of thumb. If your cap rate is higher, now there's all kinds of different things that come into play. There's expenses and all kinds of things you have to look at, but that's your first good rule of thumb. So if you're looking at something that's a 5 cap, and you're going to buy it at a 4% interest rate, you're probably onto something there. You're probably onto something, because you also have to look, and as Chris said, we're not accountants, right? But you also have to look at what your tax write-off will be on that property as well. So bring your CPA into the conversation before you start looking at anything. The other thing is, you said you're short on inventory right now, and we're at a moment in time in a market like none of us have ever seen before. You know, I mean, I'm sure that I get this question all the time. I'm sure all of us do. what happens next? What does next year bring? You know, none of us really know what next year brings. I will tell you what the future of income producing real estate brings: stability. Safe, secure stability. So what you want to do is you want to do what Chris talked about earlier. You want to do your homework. You want to find the area and the deal that makes sense today. And, you know, a lot of times there's a little bit of upfront pain. Maybe you're buying a property that, and I don't know the Chicago area, but let's say for fun, you find a property that has good, solid jobs. There's a big college there that's an anchor. There's a big hospital there that's an anchor. There's a big employer there that's an anchor. That area is bulletproof. It's not going anywhere, right? So maybe you're buying not quite the low enough cap rate that it cash flows where you want it to be, but guess what? What you're buying is a long-term investment. You're looking down the road 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you want to make sure that that's the property that you have that's creating that cash flow that you want for your retirement. So a lot of times the properties that are in the areas that don't have the best cap rate, and by best cap rate I mean the best cash flow, they're there because the cap rate is lower because the areas are so solid. They generate money, they're safe, they're secure, and they're going to provide for you. So it really is risk equals reward, and you have to look at each area specifically. You can't just say, oh, I'm looking for a 4 cap. Nope, you got to look at the area, you got to do your homework, you got to understand the area, understand the investment, and then from there kind of extrapolate the information you want to see if this is the one you want to move forward with.
Craig, you're spot on.
Excellent. Thank
One
you.
thing that I'm seeing also with it, because you're right, these are unprecedented times. We've never seen markets like this and home values like this, and so what it's causing investors to do, especially first-time investors, because they want to get in the market and they want to get in for a long-term hold. But that's why we're seeing people gravitate towards unique rental scenarios. If you can't change the purchase price and you got to make the ratio work, then you got to change the rental rate. Well, how do you artificially or officially change the rental rate? Well, you're seeing Airbnb. You're seeing people come in and say, you know, this was traditionally more of a long-term rental property, and here are the numbers on a long-term. And here's Airbnb. Now, Airbnb, like, don't go down this path. It's a slippery slope because there's zoning. You got to make sure you can do it legally. You got to also decide, do you really want to spend the time? Like it's a full-time job for some people to manage Airbnbs. But we're seeing people that have houses that, or properties where they were earning $2,000 a month. Now they're earning $4,000 a month. Mm-hmm. Well, that's, for the moment right now, that's working. That's getting them past this hump, if you will. It's giving them a lot of rental income, but is it sustainable? Like, you have to be really thoughtful about sustainability and ease of being in the business. You want to be in this kind of business. So lots to think about, but creative people are finding solutions to be able to create returns they need for right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, this is, you know, you use the word business, and I think far too many people, when they invest in real estate, they don't realize what they're doing. When you buy a piece of you buy a real estate investment, you are buying a business. You must treat it as such. You know, it's a business. You talked about having partners. You have to have a partner that's a lender. You have to have a partner, you know, for the purchase part of all of it, but you also have a partner for the running it. You have to have a property manager. You have to have a handyman. You have to have all these different entities. You have to look at this and treat it as if it's a business. And I'll tell you right now, once you get that business up and running, and it will pretty much run itself once you get to that point, it's the best business in the world. You know, I recently was talking to a friend of mine who's a trust attorney, and we were talking about the economy and all these different things. And I said, boy, you must see all kinds of investments out there, you know, as a trust attorney. And he said, I do, but the one that all the people that have true money have their money in real estate. He said that is, and as a trust attorney, that's what he sees all day long. He handles people's estates. And he says the real money, the people that end up having really wealth in their life, have the basis of their money in real estate, and primarily income producing real estate, because of that self-funding, self-sustaining component of those dollars always coming in. Somebody else paying your mortgage. You know, you can't get that when you invest in stocks or bonds or mutual funds. You know, you don't get somebody else paying off your investment for you. It's really a beautiful thing.
Hey, Chris and Craig, do you guys have any resources for, like, I'm in Hawaii, maybe I want to invest somewhere else in the country. Any resources to check appreciation rates or cap rates, or finding good markets to invest in and move dollars?
It's so interesting. You know, I've been asked that question so many times before. You know, we work in a business in real estate. Everything is very regional, isn't it? And it's very hard to sort of determine where to put your money outside of the scope of where you're at. Now, I personally have invested in markets all over the country, but it took a great deal of research on my part. I've never found a website that kind of breaks it down. It's interesting you said there's probably something out there. Maybe Chris knows about it, but really what I've tried to do is I like the idea. Now, 80% of what I own, I can drive to. And I really like that idea because I like to be able to be sort of a hands-on owner at some point, and I like to really understand the market in which I'm dealing with. So I've always been that with the exception of just a few properties that I've owned out of state because they were just great deals and I couldn't pass them up. I really like the idea of just staying really as close to a 1 hour driving radius is my rule for investing. And I've broken that a couple of times, and a couple of times it was smart, a couple of times it wasn't smart. But I think that you stay close to home because you really need to understand where you're investing, where you're putting your dollars in. And for me, if I get too far out of my own backyard, if you will, I don't know the market well enough. So I try to stay out of those areas that I don't know.
Hey, Tom, I'm going to give you two different sources. One of them is, and I could not agree with Craig more. I mean, I think when you begin to invest outside of your area, the area that you know, the area that you live in, that you can get to, it's a different business. It's still a good business, but it's a very different business. So just know that going in. But I understand if you're in Hawaii, it's like there's not a lot to choose from, and it's very expensive. And if you start looking at other places, you might see some good opportunities. First site I would go to is called the FHFA.gov website. Federal government since 1991 has indexed the top, I think it's 263 or 265 metropolitan markets. They call them MSAs. And they've got historical appreciation data going back to 1991. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Great data there. So I encourage you to look at that. And if you have trouble finding the list of the MSAs, let me know. It's a pretty robust website. The other one, I'm just trying to find it right now and I'm not able to move fast enough, but there is a site that I've trolled that I cannot speak to its integrity. But while we're talking, I'm going to try and find it here because it's really intriguing. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's where you can look at properties in 20 different markets across America. And many of them are turnkey, but where they will say, here's the property, it's already rented, we've already inspected it, we've got, you can have your lender do the financing on it, and we'll manage it for you if you want to, or you can manage it yourself. It's like your choice. But it's really, I'm kind of watching it to see how well does it do overall, but it is called, sorry. Another question comes up, we'll hit another question, and I will, Roofstock, ROOFSTOCK.com, Roofstock. Please, I can't give you any, I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying this is what it is, but it's a really cool website to check out, roofstock.com.
Okay, thank you both. I appreciate the information.
No, our pleasure, absolutely. Any other questions? We're here to help. We're all in this together. The question that came up earlier, which is how do I start? How do I get unparalyzed? Is probably the single most important question that's asked. And I'll tell you, have faith in you. Have faith in what you know. Don't rush, take your time, but don't stop. Stay in motion, keep moving forward and work your way down a path. Play a game of what if. What if I had the 30% down payment? What if I had, and I had to do it in a month? What would I do? It forces you to accelerate your process of decision-making and looking at different areas and different types of property. And all of a sudden you're going to find yourself at the end of the month going, I think I found one. And I'll tell you, anyone can find the money. We're in an economy right now where there's too much cash in the economy. There is always someone in every market who has cash that wants to invest it, but they don't have the expertise you have or the interest or desire that you have. And they're looking to put money, become a partner. Have them put the down payment in, you co-qualify for the loan, and you manage it. And you're going to learn so much about the business, but don't get paralyzed. Other questions? All right. Well, listen, you're all so kind to stay on the call with us. You're all very kind to be a part of the conversation today. The one thing I would leave you with is take action. Don't wait. Waiting is not your friend. If you have follow-up questions, I am easy to reach. Craig is amazing. You are amazingly available as well, Craig. We appreciate that. I'm probably more available than you are because you're out there fighting it every single day, and you got to stay on that game, and I appreciate that. But we're here to help. And there's more in the series. October 15th, we're talking about fix and flip. Let's keep the conversation going. There are a tremendous number of comments and questions in the Q&A chat. I'm going to try and figure out how to copy all those, get them all out of there so that we can harvest them. And again, stay tuned. On Monday, we'll have not only the actual recording, we'll also have the deck up for your review. Thank you again.
Thank you,
very
Chris.
much.
Hey, Lindsay and Curtis, how are you?
Thank you.
Chris. Thank you.
Everyone, thank you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.